I didn't know how to monetize it for the first 2 years. And, I joke about reaching out to architects and furniture makers in the early days saying, for $10, I'll put up an Instagram post just to
Cash.
just to try and fund the thing. And like, how am I going to monetize this? But it took me 2 years to figure that out. And then even like 3 years after that, because I was this young 20s guy walking into meeting rooms saying, hey guys, there's this thing called Instagram. I don't blame people for going, no thanks, like this is bizarre and I don't see a future in it. But again, there were brands out there and there were partners out there that were saying they could see what digital and social and video and even print could be in the realm of the local project. But yeah, those first 5 years was a absolute slog. I mean, that's the cliche thing people always say is, businesses don't make money for the first 5 years. And I can definitely attest to that.
Welcome to Behind the Design, a podcast where we unfold the details behind the designs we know and love and explore how each project comes to life. I am Camilla Ingall, owner of Unfolded, an interior design and styling studio. In this podcast series, we dive into the details with our industry experts, covering topics such as the creative process, latest design trends, and how we, as an industry, work together to meet the brief and overcome challenges. Let the conversation begin. Aidan, welcome to Behind the Design.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So good to have you on. So we met just recently. You are the owner and founder of the local project.
Yes.
How did it all start?
Yeah, well, it's been a journey. It's been 9 years as of next month, which is crazy to think. But my story starts and our story as a business starts when 9-10 years ago, I was actually just a chippy making furniture, doing fit outs, had the tools, had the tool belt. And I was working in a workshop just around the corner from here in Botany, the industrial area. And I was, like I said, making furniture, doing fit outs, and I was in this amazing co-working space with other creatives, makers, joiners and whatnot. And I always say one day in that dusty workshop, I sat down after knocking some stuff together and decided to create an Instagram page where initially it was created for me to put up my work and the things and the bits and pieces I was doing. But I remember one day I knocked on the door of Nathaniel, another joiner who was next to me, and I said, Nathaniel, can I take a photo of you next to this beautiful bookshelf that you've just made? And I'd love to ask you a few questions about it, from the techniques, the timber that you've used. And I remember posting that with a terribly written 3-sentence caption. And the joke goes that, that post alone got 30 likes to my content that was getting 2 or 3 likes. So that was the beginning of the journey for me, where I started realizing that celebrating other people's work and other creatives was my journey rather than doing my own. But that's where it all started, in a very dusty workshop 9 years ago. And from there, and just watching this audience and this community build, especially 9 years ago when digital and social media was so new, I just got addicted to the feeling of building something and creating a community and watching people talk and comment and collaborate. And yeah, 9 years later, almost 70 staff members in the team. And, not just our Instagram now, our YouTube channel, a print magazine that we do 3-4 times a year. It's definitely been a journey, but it's been an absolutely wild ride.
So 9 years and you've built the local project to where it is today. Team of just under 70, you said. Okay. So in those sort of infancy years, let's call it, you and I were discussing the stages of business the other week. And how did you know, one, the success of it? Obviously the likes on Instagram and the appreciation. Did you have a vision at that point of this is going to be big, or this is where I want it to go? Or were you sort of like, okay, bit by bit, so far so good? How did that evolve?
Yeah. I don't think I had like a vision where I wanted to build a big, hugely successful company, but it was more, and it still is deeply, a passion more than anything. And the joy that I still get out of, creating content and celebrating other people, that was something that clicked in my mind, where I was like, not many people or any businesses are doing this in a publishing sense, and not many people are celebrating the creator, let alone the people behind the design. And I just remember the feeling of people messaging and commenting and the interest that was shown. And I'd never felt anything like that, but it was just a really kind of humbling experience where celebrating other people's work and just watching these metrics grow and grow and grow. Although I didn't know I was onto something that could turn into what it is now or where it will be in the future, I just knew that if I followed this path and my intuition, that there is something great that could come out of it. Um, and especially in the sense where, 9 years ago, publishing and still to this day, it is a very traditionalist industry where there's a lot of these pre-established publishers that have been around for 10, 20, 50, 100 years. They are slower moving beasts, and they were slow to the digital and social world. So there's me, a 21-year-old with an Instagram page where I could do whatever I want, whenever I wanted, and reach out to anyone. There was no limitations for me. It was just creative fun. And again, kind of feeding this beast of celebrating, I guess, creators and building a community. So I knew I was onto something, but I had no bloody idea where it would end or where it is now.
It's like it just felt right.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that such a testament to like just having that self-awareness when, you hit the pillow at night and you're like, I'm not sure why I feel like this is so good or this is so right, but just roll with it.
Yeah, so true.
And some people don't have sort of the backing or the self-backing, I should say, or the confidence to just keep going.
Yeah.
But you've obviously done that, and now it's like a true success.
Definitely follow your gut, right?
Yeah, follow your gut, your intuition, but also your passion. You realize, and you were humble enough to not go, oh, well, I'm a joiner. I should be putting my own work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, no, pivot to something that's being received really well, and you were a natural in that, and then that's kind of evolved into where you are now. It's like such a nice story.
Yeah.
To kind of, not get caught up in what you think you should be doing and just do what comes natural.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lie, like it wasn't an easy journey. And like those first 5 years was an uphill battle. Like it was great building the audience and creating all that content, but I didn't know how to monetize it for the first 2 years. And, I joke about reaching out to architects and furniture makers in the early days saying, for $10, I'll put up an Instagram post just to try and fund the thing. And like, how am I going to monetize this? But it took me 2 years to figure that out. And then even like 3 years after that, because I was this young 20s guy walking into meeting rooms saying, hey guys, there's this thing called Instagram. I don't blame people for going, no thanks. Like this is bizarre and I don't see a future in it. But again, there were brands out there and there were partners out there that were saying they could see what digital and social and video and even print could be in the realm of the local project. But those first 5 years, so the first over 50% of the business was a absolute slog. But I mean, that's the cliche thing people always say is, businesses don't make money for the first 5 years. And I can definitely attest to that.
Yeah. Wow. And I love hearing when you think, you didn't know where it was going to go and then it's here now. But it's so true. Like I'm in my 6th year now,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily, anything on the profitability front, but just more on the what you've learned. And when you finally sink into, I'm aligned, I'm in the right place. I don't have this massive 15-year grand plan, but right now it feels really good.
Good.
And I'm going to continue on that path and see what happens. And just letting go of too much framework and structure, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you saying to me, having to pitch to architects and, like you just mentioned then. Did that build confidence for you as well? Because obviously you'd have to be kind of like, hey, this is me and my package, and hey, pick me and choose me and be a part of my journey.
Yeah.
Did it sort of sink in for people a couple of years in, and then that's what gained that momentum, and then obviously 5-6 years in it was small team? Is that kind of how it?
Yeah, more or less. You should have seen me at these initial meetings. Like I was an absolute nervous wreck walking in and pitching this thing. And to be honest with you, it started with architects and designers and makers, because that's where my mind went, where it goes, these are the people I'm celebrating. Should they want to be further promoted, there's an opportunity to, charge them whatever it might be. But I quickly learned that it felt not disingenuous, but a little bit unauthentic, reaching out to the people that I was trying to lift up and asking them for money to monetize it. And I quickly pivoted after a couple of years, where I then realized that the brands and the businesses that are surrounding and they're in the homes that are getting designed by these amazing architects, interior designers, and the joiners and furniture makers. So you think about the building material companies, the appliance companies, the stone and whatnot.
All the collaborators.
All the collaborators. Those are the ones who A, had the budget, but B, saw the benefit of being attached to not just industry leading designers, but also emerging designers, to say the concept of, hey, here's a beautiful home designed by architect ABC. In order to achieve a home as beautiful as this, you need product XYZ. And as soon as my mindset changed and the pitch changed to that, that's when the whole business changed. And we were creating these amazing campaigns where we're celebrating architects and designers like the true mission is. And we're also celebrating the product in there, which is an authentic specification. It is the furniture that the architect selected or the interior designer. So it didn't feel forced or pushy. So that was really the turning point there, and just building on that. And especially when we started creating a lot more video content and really creating what we called a multi-medium campaign, where something that features in print also has a video and it sits across our Instagram. It's all designed to, again, celebrate the home and the people behind it. And that's the winning formula for us.
I love hearing that, because it's so interesting hearing, your journey at the start, because I can really relate in terms of what the platform of this podcast is, Behind the Design. Very sort of parallel concept of like, things look a certain way, but there's so much that goes on, like you and I touched on a moment ago, when you arrived this afternoon around Instagram versus reality. I remember thinking when we first met, the local project, if you look at the Instagram, it's showcasing the most beautiful spaces, let's say, across Australia and New Zealand now, and we'll dive into where else in a moment. But that's a perfect example. And then I saw your Instagram and I was like, interesting, the presence of, Aidan on the local project. But you can tell it's purely business for you. And it's, as you say, it's less about what you're up to in the background, and it's going, what do people want to see?
Yeah.
What are people going to connect to? And you've nailed that.
Yeah.
Like, credit to you. Your Instagram is also beautiful as well. You've seen all the beautiful spaces, like the Sarah Ellison rental apartment I noticed recently. I was like, And it's just so nice, all of us industry doing all the beautiful things and exploring all those spaces. But yeah, it just made me think, like, how do you think or how do you feel around how that's perceived in terms of the local project having such a strong presence on Instagram now? Does that affect what you feel is your reality, or do you feel quite in sync with how that all comes together?
Yeah, it's interesting, because for the first 8 years of the business, my mentality towards that and the Instagram page was, I didn't want to disassociate with the brand, but I really wanted to let the design and the designers be the forefront. And what I kind of underlined to it was like, human-centered content and human-centered design is what makes us so popular. It's, again, celebrating the people behind the design. And after 8 years, I remember my marketing team came to me and they said, Aidan, we actually think you're a bit of a hypocrite, because you celebrate the people behind the design, but you refuse to celebrate the person behind the brand in terms of you as an individual. And it was a bit of a checkmate moment, where I was like, that's so interesting, where people relate to people more than anything, and connect with people. That's right. And, I look at today's modern world of digital and social, and the accounts that are growing the fastest and growing the biggest community. It's not so much brands anymore. It's people on a journey celebrating something they're doing. And when the marketing team presented that to me and they said, Aidan, we want to get you in front of camera, we want to connect you to the brand and get your name out there a bit more. It was a really good point that I couldn't argue with. So there has been a bit of a conscious effort in the last, year or two, give or take, to help get my name out there a bit. But it's purely just to that point of connecting human with human and actually putting a bit of personality to a business as well, which is so essential. So it's definitely outside my comfort zone a bit. Not always my cup of tea. Like, I love connecting with people, but it's sometimes a struggle for me where I'm like, this business is built off the work that my team around me have done. Sometimes it feels weird to be the center point of attention when I'm just the guy with the CEO title. But I do also see the importance of having someone connect a face to a business so it's a little bit more relatable as well. So just stepping through that journey slowly by slowly, and probably a big reason for why I'm here as well.
When you say, connection and people can relate to people, it's so true, because I think even I was told, when you're sending out a proposal, maybe even just include a 30-second video, little YouTube clip of you just talking about how you do things and all that. And I'm thinking, why would I do that?
Yeah.
They want to see my work. No one really. And then it was my mentor at the time. And she said, yes, they do, but who are they working with? And it may be similar but different for you, but it's like, you do need people to remind you of that. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I guess so. Like, we are working together potentially on a job for 2 years.
Yep.
It might make sense for us to, connect in that way, or for them to feel a connection prior to committing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like, I think where we relate more than ever as a publisher with that as well is that, 5 years ago, we released our very first video where, it was a house tour, walking through a beautiful home and feeling what it's like to move through the space. But to have a designer sitting down and talking to that, the process, what it was like to work with the client, it wasn't just explaining the home and the house. It was actually getting a sense for his or her personality and their quirks and how they move and how they talk. And the biggest feedback that we've had since that first video we do a lot of video and we do a lot of beautiful house tours, but architects and interior designers are getting commissioned for so much work off the back of it, because at the end of the day, like, you as a designer, you're in the service game. Like, you could be phenomenal at what you do, but how often would it come down to the relationship you have with this potential client and the similarities of where you've traveled and the styles and whatnot? And personality and charisma is such a big part of that. And again, why we've been so successful in the last 5 years is because we've been able to humanize design through video content and give these people a voice, but importantly, give the audience a feel for who that person is.
Do you ever have the homeowners on there, or are we talking just the architects, interior designers?
Sometimes we do. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's any coincidence that some of our most viewed videos is when the homeowner is featured in there and they're talking about their personal experience of the design and the build, which isn't always pretty, but like, it's real and it's relatable to, our audience, which is predominantly design lovers, followed by industry professionals. So
100%. And it's bringing that sort of layer of authenticity, isn't it? Because it's exactly, again, with Behind the Design, the podcast, I'm like, everyone goes on Pinterest. Similarly, everyone looks at the local project and it can look just so beautiful, but it's like, how do we get here?
Yeah.
How do we craft these spaces?
Definitely.
And so, as you say, like, I think it's so advantageous to share these journeys so people can go, oh, okay, so it seems like that renovation, they had a few challenges, like what you see in grand designs, right? The challenges of what's happening when the concrete slab goes down and, whatever's going on there. But it's like, then you watch the journey and you see it all be built up and you're like, oh, so even though it had challenges, it was a complete success.
Exactly.
But look at the relationships that were built in the background to create that successful project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spot on.
And so how did you get from, sharing these beautiful projects and these homes and spaces, and then connecting with, we spoke briefly about having these collaborations with brands that connect to what you're doing. Are you able to elaborate a bit on that type of thing?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, like, our secret sauce, so to speak, in terms of working with clients and partners is it really came from me sitting down with my team and saying, how can we work with industry-leading brands and actually create content together that is beneficial to them, obviously, to get their product, their name, the people in their business out there, but is also a massive win for us where it's actually content that people want to watch or consume as well. So
And like aligned with your brand too, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we created what we call the partnership model, where essentially how we work with our best brands is we sit down at the start of the year and we say, hey, let's not view this partnership as just a couple of Instagram posts or one video here or there, but we sat down and said, how can we create a campaign where throughout the year we're doing 3 or 4 photo shoots at projects or homes that your product is featured in. We're doing 2 or 3 videos with the same as well. We're telling those stories through print. We're telling it through social and digital. We're creating website banners. So again, it's a multi-medium campaign where our belief is that every audience behind every platform is different, whether it's Pinterest, YouTube, print, and the way they consume that content is totally different as well. So you need to create unique video content for each of those platforms. But by creating consistent noise over that 12 months and again, utilizing beautiful homes designed by architects, these brands are realizing that the best way to market to audiences who are smarter than ever these days, as soon as they get a whiff of something's too damn in your face, they'll turn off. But by, again, talking to architects who are saying, hey, here's this beautiful home and it happens to feature this product, which I authentically specified, that is genuine, it's authentic, and audiences actually appreciate it more than ever. And to tell those stories across print, digital, video, photography, through content creation, that's how we pretty much operate as a business.
And so you mentioned when we caught up the other day around you've got a partnership. Who's the role in your?
Oh, James, the head of
James,
partnerships.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Would he be sort of sourcing these brands? Would that be his role, or is he more like who sort of says, "Oh, that brand's aligned. Let's sit down and have a meeting," or do you just kind of see how you go, see who comes in? Do people reach out to you? How does that all come together?
It's definitely a mixed bag. Like he's the guru of it, and he's a networking genius where he loves to socialize and create relationships and connect with people. So just by virtue of him being out and about, he meets with these amazing brands. But a lot of it is led by the designers as well, where they're saying, hey, Aidan and James, here's this beautiful home that I've just finished. It all also happens to feature this product and this brand and these guys here. And we use that quite a bit to say thank you. We'll reach out to them and see if they want to collaborate on creating a beautiful video piece about this home or other elements of advertising as well. So it's a mixed bag. And we do get a few reach out as well, quite a few reach outs, but we're always knocking on doors and seeing who's out there.
It's cool. I guess it keeps it, what's the word, alive. You don't really know. Next week, you might be sitting down with who knows, and you're thinking, oh, how do we get here?
Exactly.
It's kind of exciting.
Exactly. Yep.
And so, again, you and I spoke about the other day, some practices. I was saying, do you have any specific practices? Like for me, it's meditation, stretching at night, yin yoga, 20 minutes, things like that just keeps me sane. It keeps me across everything. It keeps me feeling calm, centered.
Yeah.
You mentioned the gym.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, when you mentioned meditation, I just thought to myself, I need to get back into that because that's so important. But gym and health and wellness is a massive one for me. Like it's definitely a case of, working longer days and then heading straight to the gym. And specifically at the end of it, I love a good sauna, which I guess is my form of meditation really, where it's just a nice place to zen out and relax. But and I'm sure you get the same. Like if you don't meditate for a few days, or if I don't go to the gym for a few days, you just feel completely out of rhythm.
Yeah.
It kind of adds a bit of pressure to go as much as I can. But honestly, without that, and I've been through phases without that as well, and it has just been not a mess, but just uncomfortable. Like you need that vice, or you need that moment, like running a business or running a company. It is hard yakka, like we both said. And for me, just that health and wellness, which has taken me years to get into routine. But again, without that, it's I tend to crumble away a little bit, to be honest.
It is interesting when you say you know, a couple of days in and you notice that you haven't done it. Oh my God, I realized this only recently. I think I'd only gone, 2 or 3 days and I was fine, but you're just not on.
Yeah.
You're not grounded. I think for me, those types of practices, even the sauna, steam room, anything that's calming, really. I've gotten into Palo Santo.
Yes.
That's what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you burn the stick.
Of course.
And it just all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, if I do that with a bit of yin,
Yeah.
even ideas come to mind.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because you're clearing the clutter.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but it's magical.
It's essential.
Yeah. And exercise is obviously in there. I do a bit of running and Pilates and whatnot, but
Nice.
just that really grounding experience.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it allows space
Mm.
for, what you and I, as we spoke about the other day, what role are you in the business?
Yep.
And when you're a bit of the visionary, because no one else might be in that role and you need to be on for that,
Yep.
you kind of need to have that creative space and that capacity for that, those ideas to flow in.
Yep.
And you can't if you're in fight or flight all the time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought I found another version of that the other day where my fiance took me to my first ever Pilates class actually down at Bondi.
Brilliant.
And here I am walking in thinking this is going to be a breeze. Can't wait to just zen out in the corner and have a think about what's next for the business. I walked out of there a sweaty mess and a new appreciation for everyone who does Pilates. It was so embarrassing. But
how are your abs the next day?
They're still sore, and it was a week and a half ago. So
good.
it's I'm always looking for the next ones as well of what it might be. But that was an interesting experience.
Pilates is actually a little bit, I think when you just look at videos or pictures of the women doing it on their, beautiful Instagram accounts, and you're like, oh yeah, leg up or hold that pose or whatever. But when you're there doing it for 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
And usually there's no break.
No.
That's one thing I've noticed about Pilates class. I'm like, is anyone else needing a bit of water?
Totally. I had to downgrade my dumbbells from 3 kilos to 2 kilos. And I was the only bloke in the class as well. So it was incredibly humbling. So
confronting.
Yeah.
Was she happy you went though?
Yeah, she was. But I think that was a one-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. And so tell me with the local projects, obviously you're wearing a lot of hats. Not to be negative, but realistically, what are the downsides? Obviously there's going to be moments where you and I briefly touched on, a shitty email that comes through or a bad day or when you just had enough, and how, when do we allow the capacity for that to be vulnerable and have a moment of like, today's not my day.
Mm-hmm.
How do I show up today?
Yeah.
How do you manage all of that, if any?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we were talking about this, you and I, the other day, and it was a bit of a realization for me where, like, it's interesting with my mindset and having run the business for 9 years. And like I said, the first 5 years was a complete uphill battle. I really accidentally taught myself that you can't get too emotionally tied to the things that go wrong. And like I said to you, I don't know if this is a healthy approach, but I've almost learned to become numb with things that go terribly wrong, whether it's an annoying email at the end of the day or whether it's a people issue or whether it's, a client issue, whatever it might be. I've somehow managed to remain, for the most part, and maybe 99% of the time, relatively level-headed. But the cost that comes at is that when the big wins come in as well, that's also the approach that I take as well, which again, I'm not entirely sure if that's a worthy kind of exchange there where you don't feel the lows, but you don't feel the highs. But I think that just came out of necessity where the amount of rejections and pushbacks that I got for the first 5 years, I didn't really have a choice but to not make it, to really leave it and make sure it's not personal. So
did you get a bit of like thick skin? When that can happen and you're like, is my skin too thick now?
Yeah. I think
sounds
that's what it
weird,
is.
but you know what I mean?
I think that's exactly what it is. But it definitely comes with its pros where there's a lot of stuff that goes wrong in the business and same with any businesses. But to approach something level-headed and, whether it's losing money or losing a client or a shoot going wrong, if you're approaching it from a standpoint where, okay, well, let's assess it and let's figure out what the next best solutions are, that's the angle I take. And it's a bit more calming, but it comes at a cost.
Would you say numb is the word or neutral?
I actually think numb's more apt because, again, with the highs and the lows, there is none of that. It's just kind of this middle ground numbness.
Sales.
Exactly. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll have to let me know if there's a big win that you
Yeah.
have a little dance.
I hope so. Yeah. I'm sure there will be.
There will
be. But yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like you just kind of, when I hear this, I think, gosh, sometimes are there phases that we go through in life too, that it's like, at the moment, I'm just sailing.
Yeah.
Things are coming in, things are going out. I don't know if it's overly negative. I don't know. Like, I'm probably with you on that. Like, Is it numbing? Is it bad? Is it good? Or am I just doing what I need to do at the moment?
Yeah.
For what I need to get done?
That's right.
Yeah.
The big question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, probably you go to bed at night, probably still trying to solve that in your subconscious.
You let me know when you find it out.
Yeah. As well.
Yeah.
And so what's next for the local project then? There's a few things we were going to discuss. Masterclasses was one.
Yes.
Yeah. And then maybe some overseas dabble.
Definitely.
Coming up this year. So
yeah. I think the two, well, there's a Squillion this year.
And the local production.
And the
local
local
cover
production.
That too.
Yeah. There's a ton of exciting things that we're working on at the moment, but I think some of our key things are, and it really goes back to what we were saying before about, when I sat down at the end of last year and looked at our most successful videos, there was this recurring theme of the videos that had the quirky architects, designers, homeowners in there. Those were the videos that were doing millions and millions of views. And when we had it analytically laid out in front of us and we saw this and we isolated that it's actually about the people that where videos and homes do the most views, we really tried to capture that and actually think about how can we now create content where it's even more human-centered, where we're getting these individuals that are designing these homes or owning these homes, putting them in a room similar to like Masterclass, the series is, and interviewing them and asking them about what they love or what their expertise is. So we're working on a series of multiple different videos and content where we're getting the Megan Mortons and the Luigi Rossellis and all these phenomenal designers, makers and architects. And rather than getting them to walk through a house and tell us how they designed it, to really, I guess, part with some of their wisdom and educate us as an audience and community, and really, I guess, talk to us about whatever they want, really. So so
it's just an open conversation.
Totally. Open conversation.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Like, it just leaves it open to wherever it sails into.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's,
Okay.
yeah, I think like that education angle and having kind of conversations with them about their chosen topic, it's exciting for us because it opens us up from a business that celebrates homes and houses, which is a relatively small niche, into an educational platform which celebrates homes, does masterclass style content and celebrates again the people and their lifestyle as well. And for me, that's kind of a shift for us as a business from a niche publication to almost like a news-esque publisher where we're no longer just the homes and houses, but everything to do with it as well. So it's a big phase, like a big shift for us, but we're, again, following the analytics, but importantly, listening to our audience and community and seeing what they want.
And that, it just makes me think now, what led you from, like you said, 9 years ago to that 5-year time into like now 9 years in.
Yeah.
You just went with what the demand was. And it sounds like you're, the local production, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're just working with the demand.
Yeah. And follow your gut like we started at the start.
So and what's intuitively, this feels right. I'm just going to give it a go.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it's meant to be, it'll work out, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Like everything in life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's part gut, part analytics, part wanting to have fun and keeping us interested as a team as well.
Enjoying it.
We've filmed I think it feels like 3,000 home tours over the last 5 years. That's probably an exaggeration, but even for us as a business, it's like, what other fun stuff can we create, not just for our audience and community, but keeps us engaged as well. So that's
and evolving, right?
And evolving. Yeah, exactly.
Because you're in such a good place now. Like, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like from a observer perspective, that you're in such a good place now that you could say yes and no to a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of like sit back for a moment and be like, I've got myself to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can choose what's right for the business, what's right for me.
Totally.
You know, my team. Now you're obviously ahead of a team.
Yeah.
A lot of responsibility.
Totally. Yeah.
And we spoke briefly about this the other day, didn't we, around like the responsibility that comes up the bigger the team gets.
Yes.
And the growth that involves. So I don't mean to diverge, but like there's so much in that too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, how big do you get?
That's right.
Knowing that you've got the right amount of support too, so that you can grow.
Exactly.
And what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a learning curve for me personally and the business as a whole, where our trajectory as a business, where the first 5 years, like I said, was a struggle, but we managed to get 4 or 5 team members around me. But COVID came in and I went from absolute freak out mode to realizing that those 2-3 years was actually when our audience grew so rapidly, because everyone was plonked on their couch looking for content to watch as well. So
scrolling Instagram,
watching YouTube, purchasing prints. It was, it kind of felt weird, because to see all these other businesses struggling, but to see our audience go crazy was another thing. But
yeah, that's such a wild time.
It was wild.
Because our industry in general was booming.
It was booming.
And it's hard, because I had everyone saying redundancy after redundancy.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm like jam-packed.
Totally.
I'm at capacity.
Yeah. And we went from 5 to 25 in the space of a year and a bit, which sounds amazing and fun and sounds successful. But to be honest with you, it was like the systems and processes alone, let alone the management of people as well, is something I'm still learning today at 65, 70. And, even still from 25 to 70, that's happened in 3 years, which it's not healthy for a business. It sounds amazing and it's exciting. And it's like, we get these amazing new clients on and we get these amazing new content creators who join us. And it's
like this equals that. However,
how
are you managing everybody?
Yeah. And it has been a learning curve, an absolute learning curve. But the biggest and best thing that I've done in the last 2 years is actually I've surrounded myself with amazing leaders with a wealth of knowledge, and they run each department, and they've been in the game for 10 years, some 20, some 30, 40 years for each of their departments. And it's now at this point where the business, although we're still updating systems and processes, there is this sense of calmness, because I've got these amazing leaders around me that I fully trust and I fully appreciate. Whereas when it was 20-year-olds running around, including myself, we were just like headless chooks, just, following whatever we could, shooting whatever we could. And it was fun, don't get me wrong, but it was chaotic.
Like mid-20s.
Mid-20s, yeah. Yeah. Honestly, we're going to, mid-20-year-olds. So
giving it a red hot go.
Having a crack. But it was fun, but it came with its tears as well. So it's been interesting watching the business mature, and even myself as well. But hey, businesses, there's always stuff that goes wrong. It's just how you approach it and amend it.
But it sounds like even at that time, just to go back to the 5 to 25,
yes,
again, you've had this common thread. It sounds like that you've always just followed demand. And I don't know, maybe I need to learn a thing or two here, but this makes me so nervous. 5 to 25, I don't know if I would trust that would work out, even if the demand's there.
Yeah.
Did you just trust?
I did. I found that crying myself to sleep every night also helped a little bit, but no, honestly, it was like
at least 4 nights a week.
At least 4 to 5.
And then some saunas.
In the saunas, yeah, that's just sweat, I promise.
Everyone knows me now.
Yeah, that's it. But we're a weird business where if we bring on a big client, whether it's a building material company, because of the way we work with them, it's not just about bringing in one person to help manage it, but I need a new producer, I need another writer, I need another partnership manager looking after them, I need another videographer to help create their content. It expands so rapidly to service this client as best as possible. So, there was, during that COVID period, we signed maybe, 10 or 15 big new clients. And immediately I had to go out and hire 20 people because that's what you need to do in order to service this.
And did you have to? Like, it
I
was on
did.
you at the time?
Yeah. Me, we didn't have HR at that point. And we were using recruiters, but they charge a bloody arm and a leg.
They do. And so I guess in all of this, if you look at the story, the history, the path of the local project, from you being a chippy, carpenter, or joiner, sort of a bit of dabbling in.
Bit of this, bit of that.
Bit of this, bit of that. To realizing that you're needing, to showcase all this work and the videography behind it, did that lead to the local production, your fairly new baby, let's call it?
Yeah, it's a funny one, the local production, which I describe it as like our sister agency of the business, where that was set up to service all the white label content that we create, whether it's video, photography, written content. That is designed for purely clients that only want content created for their channels and their channels only. And similarly, that the local production, we run about 12 or 13 different businesses' social media for them as well, where we're running their Instagram, their Facebook, their Pinterest, their LinkedIn, their TikToks as well.
So it's a service.
It's a service as well.
And it works alongside the local project for obvious reasons, videography and everything you've just mentioned.
Exactly.
How interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But the reason why that was born, that business, and we've been doing it for 6-7 years, it just happened that we launched the brand last year, is that there was also this realization that businesses and brands, they do enjoy and they do spend an arm and a leg on media and working with us and working with other publishers. But there's been this shift in this mentality where, yes, we can spend an arm and a leg with media, but can we also create content and write content in order to build our own audience and community that we own permanently? And if you look at a lot of brands that you work with, that I work with, some of them have more Instagram followers than a lot of publishers, whether it's 100,000 followers. But people and businesses are realizing that investing in creating your own content and building your own community will eventually surpass media. And I'm not trying to talk myself out of a job here because it is important, but that's the realization that if you can build your own community that you market to, you don't have to pay media as much, and you own that audience, you own that data, you understand them, you see the analytics. So for me, it was understanding
and it's all
that
in-house.
all in-house. Yeah. So providing a service for an eventual need.
So cool. See, again, a lot of the things that you've mentioned along your, again, journey, let's call it, the word's a bit, but it's kind of that, your story, your journey of the local project. It's like, you've constantly gone, okay, what's the need? What's the need? What's the need? And it's strategy.
Yep.
Like there's so much strategy to all of this. And if you can wear that hat, like my goal this year, I think I've mentioned it probably 3 times today, but I'm just so into it. I think I told you the other day, work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
So everything I go to, what I used to get really excited about, which is fine, but I jump in.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, how do I respond to this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sleep on it. Maybe don't even tell anybody that day.
Absolutely.
I used to be such a sharer.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm just going to have to think.
Yeah, right.
It'd be something that and it sounds like how you do things is very similar to that. Like, let's look at this strategically. How can I have all of this in-house?
Yeah.
It's a cost saver as well at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yep.
And you're keeping more of a team doing it all with you and for you. And obviously I had a walkthrough, which you kindly took me through the other day. And just to see that you've got all of that happening in the background, and then you've got your office, and it's like, it's savvy. It's so savvy.
Yeah. It's been, 9 years of deep thinking and strategizing and following the guts. And again, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but to bring it back to where this industry that I'm in of media and publishing, it is very traditionalist. And we're a young business that's happy to take a leap of faith and back ourselves and understand that it's not all going to go to plan. But if something like producing video content or creating the local production or going backwards and releasing our first print magazine, if that hits, it's going to have huge impact. And those three examples have made huge impact.
Yeah.
So, but
Massive.
we wouldn't have found out unless we tried.
Yeah, that's so true. And you and I were talking the other day around, obviously, Local Project is the digital publication, but then paperback.
Yes.
Or hardcovers, let's call it.
Totally.
And even the beautiful sample you gave me. And I just thought, oh, I'm so appreciative of this because it's so rare.
Yeah.
You know, having the hardcover just in your hand, you know, I'm like, oh, this is a coffee table book for me. This is like, I can keep this and reread it. It's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's just, it just reminded me.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And so New York.
Yeah.
When, how, what's happening over there?
Yeah. Another exciting thing for us this year is we're opening the New York office in July. And I know a lot of people go, well, hold on, aren't you an Australian business? And how does that tie back into the local project? But what we realized 5-6 years ago is that as our audience was growing and growing, and especially on digital platforms like YouTube, Pinterest, and Instagram, we started noticing that our audience, which was 90% Australian, we noticed that there was 5% based in the US. Then it would go up to 6%, 10%, 15%. And it kept growing and growing over the years to the point now where it's at just over 20%. So 3-4 years ago, James, my right-hand man, and I, after receiving probably our 300th email from US studios and firms saying, when are you guys coming over to chat to some local architects here? We'd love you guys to produce video content or feature some projects in print. We decided to go over and explore the US, and we set up, I remember, I think it was like 40 meetings in 2 weeks with local firms and studios, and they were each for an hour. And honestly, for over 90% of those meetings, these architects and designers based in the US, they would just yap our year off about their love for Australian design and architecture. And they are literally obsessed. And I don't think we realize that here, that
I would not have thought.
No. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
The global impact that we have. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to hear. But they are in awe of the stuff coming out of here, and it's nice to know. And we kind of came back after that trip and we said, wow, I think there's huge potential here, just given how quickly our US audience is growing, but also their appreciation for Australian and New Zealand design. But we kind of started going over more frequently and chatting to not just designers and firms and studios, but also potential partners as well. And we explained our model and how we kind of celebrate the architects in the homes through video and print. And they saw our audience, which is rapidly growing and a massive chunk being in the US. And they essentially, a lot of them have come on board off the back of it as well. So after, I think we've done about 10 trips over the last few years, and conveniently, James has kind of created a brilliant community and network over there. And his partner is now based in New York as well. So he's put the hand up to set up the office and move over there with Millie, who's our senior features writer, who's already based over there. And we're going to set up the US operations, which is exciting, and just see where it goes. But again, analytically, it looks beautiful, but gut feeling and instinct, it feels even better as well. So it's going to be an exciting journey.
Congrats on that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's nice because, you can sort of dabble with the whole, oh, well, people might think that we're meant to only stay in Australia. But it's like, change that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
We're from Australia.
Yeah.
We're just diversifying.
That's right.
We're branching out.
Yeah.
We're scaling.
Totally.
We're still from Australia.
Exactly.
And we still love our Australian design. Right. You're still here.
Yeah.
You've just got kind of an office there.
Exactly right.
But it's like different ways to look at it, right?
Spot on. Exactly.
So good.
So it should be interesting. But it's again, like their love for Aussie design is just out of this world. And if we can help support and celebrate that while also giving them a bit of a nod as well, I think it's nice, like you said, scaling up and a nod to one another.
And also, you branching out to New York because of the demand. Again, you're working with that demand.
Yes.
It's like quite savvy, because then people from the US market will now be watching the local project. So you'll be putting your usual Australian designs on there and the American designs.
Yeah.
So you're actually elevating the Australian design and sharing more of what we do
Exactly.
internationally.
That's right.
Everyone wins.
It's a win-win. Not to mention like the amount of Aussie brands that are looking to do the same as well. Like we've partnered with 6 or 7 Australian businesses now who are doing the same thing. They're setting up in the US and they're growing their businesses there. And for us to kind of help be a bit of a conduit and celebrate their product or their brand through an Australian and US audience, that's another win-win for them as well. So it's it's good fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in all of this, what would you say to your younger self, if any?
That's such a good question. I would say to myself, I just say keep hanging in there. Like that, again, that first 5 years was a grind, like almost to the point where it was unpleasant, but
Could have opted out.
yeah, no, I don't think I'd opt out. I'm so competitive, but just a little gentle pat on the back is probably the only thing I'd say, is just keep sticking at it. But no regrets. Like I wouldn't change this out for anything. And I know we've still got hard times ahead of us. And like I said, things always go wrong. That's just the nature of running a business. But I couldn't have asked anything more, to be honest. Like to do what we love is such a blessing that not many people get to do. So yeah, just a gentle pat on the back, not even a word.
That's nice. Not even a word.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so where can people find you then?
Thank you. My marketing team will be very happy. Well, there's the business first and foremost, which is obviously the local project across YouTube, our print, all digital social platforms. And then my personal one is just Aidan Anderson, AIDAN. And I'm on Instagram, so would love a follow.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. And so I'll ask you one final question, a funny one.
Hit me with it.
You have 10 minutes to spend $10,000, but only on home decor. What are you buying?
I am hopping in my car and absolutely legging it down to Paddington to go see Henry Wilson in his new studio down there.
Brilliant.
And I've had my eye on this beautiful marble kind of key holder piece that he does, and it's beautifully carved out in classic Henry Wilson style. I would chuck that in a bag, and just that would be absolutely my first purchase. I'm a big Henry Wilson fan and got a few pieces, but that one's been on the waiting list for some time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
A key holder.
Yeah, it's like, it's interesting shape. It's like, it looks about 6 kilos because it's quite large and thick as well, but it's a beautiful like white and pink marble.
Cool.
It looks, very heavy, but absolutely beautiful.
I mean, it would only sit on the entry console, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Statement every day. That's right. Yeah. It's not going anywhere.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, it's been incredible having you on, Aidan.
Thanks, Camilla. That was so fun. I appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Behind the Design. We've created this podcast to bring people together, inspire new ideas, and foster a deeper understanding of what goes on behind the design. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with someone who might find it valuable. Until next time, keep creating and stay inspired.